All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Allison. My pronouns are she, her. I am the executive director of the Gallatin County Democrats. I'm really excited tonight to be joined by Chris Pope, who is running for Senate District 31 and who is our current representative in House District 65. So Chris is going to share a little bit about himself, and then we're going to have a conversation with him and hopefully learn a little bit more about his candidacy, what he hopes to achieve next session, and what we can do to help him. So Chris, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Allison. Hello, everybody. And it's been a pretty busy day for me, and I'm sure for everybody. So for you all to carve out a tiny bit of time, it means a lot to me. And we have a very important 6 weeks in front of us. And for those of us candidates, the real push has to be between now and about the 12th of October when ballots will hit our mailboxes. So that's a notice to everybody: watch your mailboxes, presuming we don't have a late Supreme Court decision, but I think we'll expect that. But that gives us about 10 or 15 days to really double down. And I just want to say before I get into myself that I'm a firm believer in good government matters. And Allison, this, as you know, hats off to Allison and the Gallatin Dems, and thank you for hosting this evening. This is maybe the biggest election of my lifetime, and a referendum on so many things. And I think that's why we're on the call tonight. So I won't dwell on them because I think everybody's going to have their own suggestions as to what's on the ballot, what's the referendum. And I come up with privatization of our schools, privatization of land. We're trying to maintain access and the health and quality of our public lands, and we want public education, and we do not want public education funding going to private schools. We want to address climate change, and Conrad's on this call, and this morning had a wonderful piece in the Bozeman Chronicle. Climate change is front and center, one of the, if not the most important issue for me. We'll talk about that. New energy economy. I think we need to fight for inclusiveness and diversity and equity, and so many at so many levels. So I'm a Black Lives Matter passionate supporter, and I believe in economic justice. And we'll talk maybe about that this evening. And then finally, I just want to say that I am committed to bringing, one person is a difficult deal, but if each of us brings a certain amount of decorum and a respect to the process on the House floor, and then for me on the Senate floor, if I'm elected, the bottom line is creating relationships and building productive paths forward on so many issues that we have. So my real interest tonight is to answer questions and to help us energize for the coming weeks. There's going to be a lot of difficult language and difficult conversations. We've already been through it. It's exhausting me. I feel like crawling under my bed sometimes. But I think that we have to come back with transparency, and we have to come back with civic action. Exactly, my friends on this call tonight. And so I'll just rip through briefly a summary, because I think I know many of you, and so on, but I'm a two-term legislator, House District 65 is North Bozeman. I'm running for House Senate District 31. So Mike Phillips is stepping down. He's termed out. This is the same seat that our mayor, Bob Hawks, had back in the early 2000s. I probably get that wrong, but I believe, and to mid 2000s. And then before Bob, others, but Dorothy Eck. I'm very proud to serve. I mean, this means a lot to me. The Senate is a different beast than the House, so I'm not going to be able to speak in detail about some of that, but I will be able to talk to my experience on the House floor briefly. Everything's going to be brief tonight because I think Allison and I will watch clocks to make sure that we can prepare for the next event coming shortly at the national level. I want to shout out to my wife, Maddie, and my father-in-law, Jerry, who are on this call tonight. And Maddie's my partner and my best buddy. And we together built the Great Rocky Mountain Toy Company. And then I've spent my whole adult life, it feels like, that's not quite accurate because I got here when I was 40, but I have been very involved in nonprofit work, Eagle Mount, Montana Conservation Corps, have served briefly on the Montana Human Rights Commission. So I have a pretty broad, maybe some would call it checkered past, but I have some real passions. I really believe that all of us, every single one of us, have a role to play in the civic future of the public square, I call it. And I think that that is, our obligation as citizens to find that spot. And as I look around our chat room here, our Zoom room, there are a lot of people here who have so stood in and have become leaders in their own right. So I'm proud to be in your company. So anyway, I'm not sure if that, my background in the legislature, I've worked on the Business and Labor Committee, which honestly is a little wonky. It works with, but we work with medical licensing, trying to get dental hygienists and dietitians into the workforce and to focus on wellness and to help the organizations that license professionals to be fair treated and to also do their job. And I work on local governance committee, which is all about some topics that we'll talk about tonight. Possibly local option sales tax is one. And I'm very involved in energy stuff. So those of you who know me, I'm a lead voice on renewable energy, on the transition that's necessary, market-driven transition that will happen with our carbon fuels, and to make sure that that transition is fair and equitable, but also proactive. I'm a big time believer that climate change needs to be addressed front and center. And I think this state has a lot of things that it can do to keep that as a priority. And I will be one of those bringing that to the floor conversation each day. I think I'll leave it at that. So my real interest here is to make sure that we have a conversation, because I can talk all night. Maddie can tell you about that, and we don't want to go there. I hope I can, though, impart the passion that I have for running for government and civil duty and some of the very, very important issues that are immediately in front of us, healthcare being certainly one, and then issues around public education and our budgets. So I'll leave it at that, you guys, as a start.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I have to say, like, you are so involved and have been so involved in our community. And I'm just really grateful that you continue to represent Bozeman and Bozeman represent it well. So thank you for your years of service and for everything you've done. So with that, I would love to open it up to questions. So if someone has a question, wave or raise your hand or just unmute yourself. I think we're all, Conrad, I think you've got a question.
Yeah.
So for it.
Yeah, how's it going? Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, Chris, for introducing where that is. And we're really looking forward to being energized by all this. Could you review the district that you represent in neighborhoods, so we can be thinking of all of our friends within there as we talk about who we're going to contact after this call?
It's the first two lines on my little sheet here, Conrad, and so you're bringing me back to task. Thank you. Here's the idea. Senate District 31 is the east side of Bozeman, and it stretches from Sipes Canyon and Bridger Canyon all the way down to Highlight and Cottonwood Canyons. So, and then the line that defines east and west in the Senate District world in Bozeman comes down Spring Hill Road, so everything east everything east of Rouse, coming down and at Story. So, you're on Rouse. Everything east is my district. At Story, it takes a left and goes all the way out to 19th and then to Fallon. And then all the way down to the highlights. So it carves out around the university basically, and it gerrymanders. It's the folks who draw up these districts have to come up with 20,000 individuals, and it's about 8,000 or 9,000 houses. So it's a pretty big district, but it also makes me eternally sort of got a lot of awe for Zach Brown, who's running for the whole of Gallatin County, which is bigger actually than Rhode Island. So I have it easy in that regard. But it's a pretty big district. It's the whole east side, goes all the way to the Park County line, and it's very, very urban and blue in the center of town. And then it has a wonderful and disparate sort of spread, Conrad, of farms and households and long driveways and people who have a view, on the outside, as we know, down to Triple Tree and over around the corner, Bear Canyon. So, and in this world, I will say, you guys, that I decided in May not to door knock. I put it on the front of my literature. I said, "Dear neighbor, in the interest of keeping us all safe, I'm not going to door knock." So there's an awful lot of work that's going on, but it's so far away from what we're used to, and doing my best. And so are all the candidates. Anyway, I don't know if that answers that one, Conrad, but it's about 20,000 people.
And I did just put a link to a map that the Gallatin Debs have of Senate District 31. It's in the chat. It's not exact, but it does a pretty good job of giving you the general neighborhoods. We actually have these maps for all of the districts and all of the precincts in Gallatin County. So if you're curious about, where your precinct is or your district, and you don't know, we actually have that on our website. So you can send people to that or reference it as well. But it's a big district. What other questions are there?
Go ahead.
Hey, this is Duncan Patton. I have a question. Climate change, obviously, it's going to come up. Where does Montana stand? How do you, as a senator, how are you going to deal with the pushback you're going to get from the areas that are really still developing coal and things like that?
Well, thank you, Duncan. And this is a space, so to speak, and an interest of mine, and also something I'm spending a lot of time on, because I sit on all the energy and energy committees. And I'm not sure, but I might start seeing, 4 years ago when we brought up the idea of a transition and can we help the workers, Duncan, raise your hand if I'm not answering your question here, but when we were trying to find that transition and lay it out and work across the aisle and try and come up with practical, funded ways for these communities to transition to new jobs, new technologies, study how the grid comes right by a coal strip. There's all kinds of opportunity for interconnection of wind and solar, for example, and energy storage for that. So there's many, many jobs to be had out in that part of our state. And to be quite frank, and not to disparage, but there was really no interest. I had been told repeatedly, Chris, thanks, but if you're interested in a wind and solar conversation, you must be anti-coal. Please get out of the room. And I, respectfully honor that. I mean, they're trying to figure out how to keep their communities whole. I understand it. It's very stressful time. It's market driven, and we all know the storylines there. But there is I am leading a group of 10 legislators through a Zoom type of workshop here, starting in about 10 days from now into November. It's called the New Energy Economy Legislative Workshop, and it's going to be trying to teach my colleagues, including myself, using some really terrific out-of-state resources on methods and strategies for how to keep our society together while we're dealing with these things. It's Duncan, this is to your question. There's a very slippery slope on the urban-rural divide here, and the energy piece just inflames that, as it does with union stuff. I mean, I've had very, very frank conversations with union members, and I say, you guys, we have to get on a page here and understand where these new jobs are going to come from. They may not be coal jobs. They may not be mining jobs. You may not, be doing what you and your grandfather did, but there is an opportunity going forward here. And I think, Duncan, I think there are times when you have to put your foot down and you have to stand tall. And I've done it 100 times on the House floor to say coal just has to go away. So sorry. We are on the path to transitioning away from that fuel. However, there is some grace and some decorum and some honor and some respect in the middle of this, and we are going to respect those communities, by God. I don't know, Duncan, if that's you're muted, Duncan, but that's a start on that. So you have to unmute.
I unmuted him.
Thank you.
Chris, and part of that obviously is salaries. I mean, or wages, yeah, whatever you want to call them. Coal pays very well.
It does.
In order to match that, we're going to have to come up with industries or technologies or that are going to pay those same people if they switch,
right,
a salary, a payroll that matches what they have now.
Correct.
I mean, that's a tough bridge to cross, I think.
It's a very, very tough bridge to cross. And, I look to my union. I'm supported by the MFPE, which is teachers and state employee union. It's not the trade unions. The AFL-CIO has supported me on not this round, not for any reason that I'm aware of, but there needs to be a conversation about how we can bring prevailing wage into the new technologies. In other words, these technologies are not going to be the same. Duncan, I don't have an answer to, when someone's, making $40 an hour in the coal mine, I'm not sure that those kind of jobs are going to exist. There may be ways to transition so that we don't have people going from, some kind of a livelihood to a different livelihood. But I think there is an opportunity to pay attention to what these quality jobs need to have. The livability issue is huge. And we're talking about energy right now, but quite honestly, it's for our community in Bozeman. And I'm very, very focused on issues of livability, both in our town, but also in the energy sector. And I don't think that there are good answers quite yet. I know that there's some of these jobs will replace dollar for dollar, but it's not across the board. And we have a private sector that wants to do these wind projects, for example, big billion-dollar wind projects currently in the state of Montana. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for union work, but the private sector will be paying a good wage for those jobs. They may not be dollar for dollar what a union member would get. And that is a conversation that needs to happen.
Great, thank you. There is a question in the chat from Nate, and sort of related to this. What are your plans for climate change within Montana?
Well, I spend more than 50% of my time on issues relating to emissions. It used to be renewables. When I was 25 years old, I was working in the solar electric field. That's how I came out of graduate school, and it was a passion of mine back on the East Coast. And I have since, and I think with the times, changed, and it's an issue of climate change and emissions and energy efficiency. is a very, very powerful technology that we can use on our grid system. I'm proposing to the state of Montana with others, I'm not gonna, I gotta be careful here because I don't want to sound like there's no one else doing stuff. I mean, that there is a new energy economy in front of us that represents tens of thousands of jobs and many billions of dollars of investment. It starts with something called the smart grid. In another 3 or 4 years, all of our homes, we'll be able to opt out of this, by the way, because there are some people who think this is a sort of a privacy issue, and we don't need to get into that tonight, but that the smart grid will allow ourselves as consumers and our households to communicate with the utility and to choose when we consume power and so forth. So there's a real opportunity in the future to use the web and to get lower cost power. That will result in a better distribution of renewable energy across our grid. So we're talking about the replacement of carbon, and we're trying to do it with the least amount of disruption. It's going to be disruptive, and we can see it around the country. You could read about it in the paper every day. But I believe that with every investment into the smart grid, distributed energy, so this is rooftop solar and other things that we're employing people to basically redesign the grid. The grid is 150 years old, and it hasn't changed hardly at all. Anyway, so we don't want to go too much further into that, but Nate, I'm very interested in issues around landscapes and how we treat our public lands. I'm very interested in an idea about state service. I serve on the board of the Montana Conservation Corps. We do AmeriCorps, so it's a national service. You get young folks into the woods, and they're building bridges and trails, but they're also clearing forests, and they're taking care of noxious weeds. I think there's a whole large avenue to run down to get younger folks, even older folks. This is in the sense of the old CCC back in the World War II days, when we mobilized large groups of people to do good public work. And I think that can be redirected to climate change, frankly. So water quality, air quality, I'm passionate about it all. And my particular expertise is in the energy field, so that's where I'll be starting.
Awesome, thank you so much. So another question in the chat, which I think was going to come up. Can you talk about a local option sales tax and the need and the obstacles?
All right, the T word, but here we go. I received a phone call today and spoke for 45 minutes with the Chronicle, so there may be an article on this. So I would rephrase it to call it property tax reform, reduction, and relief. We in Bozeman hold a party twice a year, once in the summer and once again in the winter, for all the folks who come and enjoy our community and our surrounding public lands and recreational opportunities and whatnot. And when they come here, you know, they're driving on our roads and using our public services, and we have police and fire and public safety in mind, and they love coming here. And frankly, most of the time we love having them. It's certainly good for our economy. But we throw this party and we don't ask anybody to pay for any of it. And so the local option sales tax is a path to property tax relief. I can't tell you the number of folks 2 years ago was knocking doors, and now it's simply in the grocery store talking to people about their onerous property taxes. And for some people, it is the reason they're going to be moving from Bozeman here. It's a heartbreak, and I believe that the issue of livability, I'll call it, and so it's property tax reform, it's affordable housing for working Montana families, and a host of other issues around just how do people make it here. We've already spoken about living wages for sure, and that's also a bit controversial. I'll stick with the taxes. The local option sales tax would tax luxury goods at a 2 or 3% kind of level. When we go to San Francisco and buy a nice meal or drink a bottle of wine, we're paying tax on that. In Bozeman, Montana, if someone wants to buy a $30 bottle of wine, they might have to pay 50 or 60 cents. And that'll help build new infrastructure that's required because of the wear and tear on our city. It'll help pay for a new fire station or pay the wage for a fireman. Actually, it's more of a capital type expense. So we're trying to let our visitors gently and fairly help us pay the bill to have them here. And I brought that bill twice now, and quite honestly, we haven't gotten traction. In a nutshell, there's a long conversation to that one. Anybody want to talk about this? I'm very open. Please contact me. The issue is that people look at Bozeman, Montana, and from the state legislature, and they say, you guys were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. There's nothing that we out here in Townsend, Miles City, we're just not gonna listen too hard to you. It's one of our biggest challenges, and I think our caucus here in this town, those who are representing us in Helena are really, really skilled, and I'm very honored to be part of them. But we have a lot of work to do to convince folks, we're a big tax base for the state here, that we actually have what I would call, and what I told the Chronicle today, are existential issues around the issue of being able to pay the bills to keep our intersections safe and to expand our sewer and water plants properly. Our property taxes are onerous, not sustainable, and frankly, I think there will be some really bad moments in our future if we don't address this now. And I don't know if that answers that question, because it's a really important one. It's one of my top 2 or 3 things that I need to do when I get up there. It is a top priority of the city of Bozeman as well. And I think all of us legislators are starting to pay more attention, and there's a better connection to our city leadership the way it should be, that when we leave Bozeman to go to Helena, we are carrying with us a couple of goals and objectives that come from the people, and it should be that way. And livability and affordable housing, whatnot, those are the local option sales tax is something that's requested by the city of Bozeman.
Great, thank you. Molly, you have a question.
Great, can you hear me?
Hi, Molly.
Hi, Chris, how are you?
Good.
It's nice to see so many other familiar faces on this call. So my question, I've been lucky to call Montana home since 2006. And for that entire time, we've had a Democratic governor who's been the backstop for many important issues. One that's particularly important to me being women's reproductive health. And I'm curious if you can speak to what would be your top priorities or critical strategies that if elected, if you're elected, but also in the face of a potential Gianforte governorship.
Right. Thank you, Molly. And boy, what an important question that is. The governorship is, the governor is the, the person on the front of the boat that's pointing in a direction, that's where we go. And I've said it oftentimes that, I mean, it sounds alarmist, and it is, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but, we will turn into an Idaho pretty quick if we get to the point unless we are able to get the House. And I want to mention Kelly Cordum's on this call, and he's running for my seat, and I just hope that everybody who has him on the ballot will certainly give him a big shove, because he's terrific. He's going to be great in Helena. And thanks for being on the call, Kelly. Right now, we're 42 people out of 100 Dems in the House of Representatives, and 19 out of 50 in the Senate. The Senate will not change gears. The Senate is all about a defensive set of maneuvers, Molly. This is And then on the House side, there's a chance we might catch a couple more seats. So we might be at 46 or 48. So every single vote in 2019, last year, during sessions, so sessions from January to May, every single vote, we had to go find 9 more votes. We're at 42, we need 51. And so there's something called the Solutions Caucus, and maybe you've heard about this. This is a group of moderate Republicans, and they are Republicans, and they're good people. And they oftentimes have their own ideas about stuff. But on the important stuff, on Medicaid expansion, on the Salish-Kootenai Water Compact, dark money issues, we were able to hold the day. We were able to kill Colstrip, the purchase of Colstrip for $1. They tried to ram that through the legislature and bypass the whole public regulation, the Public Service Commission, which is, you know, anyway, that's another story. Long and short, the state of Montana will be on a knife's edge. If we can get more people in the House, I think what's going to happen, what we'll hear in the future is that there's going to be a new coalition. It'll be a big block, if not all Dems, and hopefully 10 or 12 moderate folks. And the Republican Party, just between us chickens, is eating its own. And people in our community, Don Seifert, Bruce Grubbs, really good individuals, hardworking, very dedicated public servants. Moderate Republicans have been handed their pink sheets, you know, in this primary. So we have, it's a diminished group of people. It hasn't gotten easier. We'll see what the election does, but you know, it's a defensive motion. We will be playing defense. I played defense in hockey, Molly, so this comes naturally. But Molly's a hockey player, you guys. You know, the long and short is that we're going to have to find ways to create coalitions up there, and it's all about working across the aisle. The Democrats can't do it on their own, and you know, I'm panicked about it, but I also have faith that that we will, you know, get into conversations that may be very difficult, but that we can win. And having said that, we've also defeated bills that sent me home physically ill at night. We won't get into what those are, but that had to do with women's reproductive rights and other things that, I mean, the varnish is off, and it's going to be, as I told Maddie a few mornings ago, it's going to be a knife fight, I'm afraid. And I hate to say it that way. I don't want to add to the animus, but we need to call it what we think it's going to be, because that sets the stage. We have to go out, shake some hands. Walt Sales out in Amsterdam is a tremendous human being. Walt needs to be embraced by our community. We need to find ways to communicate and to touch and to support those folks. And then we can go forward together. In my opinion, that is the road ahead.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate such a frank response.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to add, since we're talking about the House and a possible Gianforte governorship, there's actually 3 seats in Gallatin County that could be won and could be flipped from Republican to Democrat. And so that's House District 64 with Brian Popeil, House District 67 with Colette Campbell, that's Belgrade, and then House District 68, which is also the outlying area of Belgrade, and that's with Emily Broston. And all 3 of those candidates could use your support, either telling people who live in those 3 districts to vote for them, sharing their information, donating if you can, you know, anything that you can do for those 3 House seats would be phenomenal. Because if we can win those, that really moves the state and helps protect the state a little bit more against one, the national politics that creeps in, but also a Gianforte governorship, which, Molly, I'm on the same page with you about women's reproductive rights and like how devastating this could be for Montana. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that this is something that you all should be aware of, that we have 3 close House races that can be won and should be won by Democrats if we all come together and push for them. So that's my little plug about that. Another question in the chat is, can you address overall health strategy, continued Medicaid expansions, support for rural hospitals, just what that looks like next session?
Well, I will lead with what we hear in the hall, so to speak. This is on Zoom meetings and stuff, but that there's going to be a very significant sort of attack on our county health workers. You know, our county, here, Matt, in our county health department, well, it's the city county health board, that these are folks who are holding the line for us, and that we're going to need legislatively to respond to what I think is going to be a very odd and very irrational attack on healthcare. And, you know, we're going to hear about it tonight in the presidential debate. Why would you be trying to turn off pre-existing conditions, you know, and all that in the U.S. Supreme Court? Well, we have the same kind of animus going on here in this state. I think there's going to need to be a doubling down on, and it's going to involve budgets. It has to involve budgets. We cut pretty heavily. I wasn't in the legislature that year in 2017. Budgets were cut back substantially, and mental health services, it comes to mind. I mean, it was gutted. We lost community support. The rural hospitals through Medicaid. Medicaid is a lifeline to the rural hospital service in this state, and I think that maybe there's some good news that it's front and center on everybody's mind. I don't know that the coalition, I just got off a big conversation with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Depending what you think about them, they're actually very progressive in their government services group to try and promote lower cost, you know, inclusion, very much behind the Medicaid programs, and I credit them for that. Long and short, I think we haven't seen what the coalition looks like yet, and I'm losing sleep on it. I mean, who are those folks? Who, you know, where are those 10 extra people that on a healthcare vote to protect our Medicaid program? You know, last time we got the Medicaid extended for 3 more years because it was in spite of the fact that they put work requirements into the bill as part of the solution, that people who are out there, and many of them, you know, they can't work because they've got health issues. I mean, it's just nutty. But I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're just going to, you know, we had a big problem with our auditor about 3 months ago, where the state auditor, who showed his cards from a partisan point of view and decided that half of our Medicaid recipients were illicit, that they didn't deserve those receipts and that they shouldn't have been part of the program. And he tried to basically cut Medicaid off at the kneecaps. You know, I don't know. I'll tell you what, maybe it's because it's called Obamacare sometimes. There's something going on. It's just uncanny because of the number of people, you know, 100,000 people in the state of Montana and 97,000 people depend on Medicare. You know, and these are families, they're working families, they pay taxes, they're out there, their kids need it. So, you know, what are we doing? I think the coalition will come together, but I don't know, until we get past this election, we don't know who's in and we don't know what that coalition looks like, but that'll be really important. And healthcare, outside of the budget itself, healthcare is going to be front and center, probably the most important conversation. And it may be just defensive. We may just be trying to protect what's already in place. Not very optimistic, but but I'd love to take a run at mental health issues and to increase the budgeting and the service extension into rural areas on mental health. I think we've got a crisis on mental health in this state, and I just can't understand why we don't attack it. But this may be a difficult session to attack anything that costs money, you guys, just so you know. It's going to be trading one really important thing for something else. We don't have any on a budget. We don't have any. We have $350 or $400 million in a rainy day fund, and by 2021, if COVID remains and we don't have other sort of positives come, we'll run through that. 2022 is going to be the year that we all, in the state government, for budgets, that's when the hurt could happen. And anyway, I just don't know what to say about it, but the budget issue, we're not Wyoming, good news. But in Montana, we'll have its share of disruption, but it's going to be delayed from what I know.
Hi, Allison. I took myself off mute, so do you hear me? Because this doesn't seem like a chat thing, but I just want to thank Chris for running. First of all, during COVID and how you can run a campaign is just so difficult just to start with. And then to run into what is going to be a buzzsaw, no matter what. I mean, politics is not fun these days, and it just takes so much patience. And so thank you. Well, we're all on the same team with you and the same things, and need people like you up there.
Yeah, thank you. And there are people on this call that someday I would love to consider being in this legislative role. And I think, I hope you can self-identify. But it is difficult, Eva. I tell you what, I get emotional about it. I'm all in, I mean, and our group in Bozeman is all in. Think to the west. It's our western part of the community that needs our support from here all the way to the 3rd of November. If nothing else happens, if we could knock doors, but we can't. But I agree with Allison that that's where the exciting part could be, if we could change some of those seats at the state level. It'll make a big difference. But thank you, Eva. That's very sweet. I appreciate it.
We all feel that way. And we're just so grateful that, like I said, you continue to serve, because it is not easy and it's getting harder. So thank you. There is one question in the chat about asking you to talk about your special needs bills and teacher support bills.
Thank you. I mean, I've told myself 100 times that if nothing else happens and I can get this bill through, I'll have done what's really in the heart of my heart. Senate Bill 290, or House Bill 298 last year was the bill to extend educational opportunity for kids with special needs who have an IEP. So an IEP is an individual education plan. They start on an IEP. These kids are challenged, and they have a whole team to get them through this educational experience, and it's wonderful. And here's what happens in the state of Montana. We were with Maine, the only other state that at the age of 18 will throw a kid on the sidewalk, figuratively speaking. If they hit their 18th birthday and they haven't graduated yet, that's it. That's over. They don't get school funding anymore. And so kids with special needs, kids with Down syndrome, I know, in 5th grade, many of them, heartache here, have to have a heart surgical sort of intervention during their 5th grade. And, and they'll miss 6 or 8 months of school or whatever. And these kids need a little more time to get through. And the state of Montana used to do this until 1997. And then God knows why. Somebody came up with the brilliant idea of throwing these kids out of their educational process, and they're working as hard, if not harder, than any other student in the school, getting a diploma, allows them then to go to a program like MSU up here called Life. Learning is for everyone. Learning is for everyone is for kids with special needs that are going to matriculate. And this just started last year. If you don't know about Life, Google it. There's some crazy, wonderful people up on MSU's campus who are matriculating kids with special needs, and they live in the dorms, and they go to all the social events, and they go to the sports events, and they are full-on students, and they get to pursue their dreams. They might go into an astrology course, study the stars, astronomy, sorry, study the stars, and then be able to, maybe not take every exam, but they are pursuing their dreams. And when they get done with that, many kids are working up at Bozeman Health, and they're working in other places in our community. And their jobs are meaningful to them. They get paid a wage, they pay taxes. They get to join assisted living, or sometimes even independent living. These are kids who are following their dreams. And this is the first time this generation of kids will probably, because of medical miracles and other things, are going to outlast their parents. We have a whole segment. It's a small segment, but an important segment of our wonderful community here. Families and the kids themselves, the students, who deserve a full shot at a full education and to be able to pursue their dreams. And I've brought that bill. We got it through the House twice. Last time I got it through the House 86-13. So we kicked butt and took names. And then I brought it to the Senate side, and I couldn't get it out of committee. So I said, screw it, I'm running for the damn Senate. And we're gonna go do it over there. And we're gonna do it in the House, and then we're gonna do it in the Senate. And this is a stigma, you guys. This is going right back to Black Lives Matter. It's the same damn issue. It's all about honoring people who deserve to be honored in this society, and we're, by God, gonna make that happen. And I get very emotional about it. But these families, there's a wonderful, wonderful community of families in this town, Bozeman, that I adore, and who are really champions for things that really matter. And so that's, if I do nothing else, that's what I'll be doing this January.
Thank you. There's time for one more question. If there is someone who has a pressing question, we've covered a bunch of topics tonight, and I'm so grateful for your insight, Chris. It's been wonderful to hear and get your perspective. I just really appreciate it. I liked you before, I like you even more now.
Well, thank you. I have some dear friends on this call, and that's why I'm feeling the love. So
yeah,
thank you.
Well, you should. I think there's a lot of love coming your way because you give a lot of love, and I think we all recognize that. Yeah, Kathy, go ahead.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Maddie.
Hey.
Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. We're all behind you. I'm just wondering, a lot of the issues that we have are kind of stem from this rural-urban divide, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on how we can heal some of that, how we can better communicate with each other and understand each other, and move forward as a state together, and not just be kind of at each other.
Yeah, Kathy, it's a terrific and very important framework for thinking about stuff in this state. And there are very few issues that come up that don't touch on the urban-rural piece. And so, I will say that I think because of term limits, and we're all, I'm not a person who has to worry about term limits too much. I'm not planning to do this for 40 years or something. In other words, and back in the day, somebody might serve for 30 years. And at the end of it, that person might be from, somewhere far away and have friends in Missoula and have friends vice versa. And there was a network, and there was a sense of community, and people got to know what each other's challenges were. And the first thing, literally the first thing out of my mouth, the first chance I had a chance to speak publicly in the House, I said, I will be here to listen to your issues when it comes to agriculture and water quality and healthcare in rural areas and whatnot. And I just ask that you listen hard. You know, I am from Bozeman. We do have a lot to be thankful for, but we worked hard for it, and we're totally willing to share what we do know about what works here. And yet we still have existential challenges, you guys. I've had the public works person in the city and he shows me a spreadsheet in this from 2024, 25 out, it's red. Our public works department runs out of money in terms of the degree of things that we need, new intersections and safety, just sidewalks for our kids and whatnot. So we have our existential issues. Yes, climate change is affecting the drought cycles and stuff, you know, for our farm community. I want to know about that. I want to travel there. I want to be there. I want to see it. I want to feel it. I want to talk to the folks. And I also feel as passionately that, you know, our cities are a major source of vitality in the state, and obviously the tax base, and we have our universities, and, you know, we have our contribution too. So we need to get away from, I'm not sure this answers it, Kathy, but we have to break down that sense of, you know, us and them and here and there. We're all massively connected. I mean, we depend on agricultural products, and folks depend on the wonderful kids coming out of MSU to go back out into the world and do good work in the state of Montana. So, you know, I think we just have to keep, we have to educate ourselves, number one, as to what those pieces are. I don't think we are carrying them around properly. I think we all need more education on that issue, but I think it's also, then we have to prioritize. And we have to spend some time. And I tell you what, if anybody hasn't met Walt Sales, you need to meet him. And when you meet him, if you know him, give him a slap on the back. And if you don't know him, say, you know what, I've been told I need to meet you because you understand this urban rural piece, and you can be a bridge to sort of course correcting. We need to course correct. We have massive amounts of opportunity here. We do not need to be talking about what one group is doing and what one group is not doing. That doesn't work. We need to be on the same team, but it's really hard. This, Eva said it earlier, this environment is toxic as hell. And so I'll sit down and say, look, can we talk about education? And the first thing out of that person's mouth is, I just want to get rid of the Department of Education, the OPI. You know, when you're a consensus person, which I am, I went to school for it, you know, graduated with a strong sort of set of classworks in organizational dynamics and how to create teams and how to work together. And when that's the starting point, oh my God, you know, but it's not every time that. So there's a lot of opportunity, but it takes a lot of energy, and the current situation is toxic enough that it's making it really, really difficult for those of us who are oriented to consensus. It makes it almost, I'm hoping that I don't get physically ill up there. I have in the past just because of the stress. But, you know, you just keep doing it. But it's a really important template, Kathy, so keep talking about it. Really important.
Definitely important. So there is one more question that was put into the chat, which we can ask if you can answer succinctly, Chris.
Yeah, we have a presidential debate about to happen here.
Yeah, so,
okay.
Right, and I want to be conscious of that. I am also putting in a link to election information for Gallatin County so that you all know important dates and when ballots are mailed and drop-off locations and things like that to tell your community, your network as well. So feel free to use that as a reference. It has been vetted. It has all the right information, unless I've totally missed something, but I don't think so. But the question is, from Stacy, thank you for supporting Black Lives Matter. Do you also support defunding the police?
In a short answer, no. And let me explain though, and I'm going to try and explain in 60 seconds. And Stacy, please call me. And it's not to be disrespectful, because I understand why the question comes up. But I am really, really, really thankful for the law enforcement folks who go out every day and put themselves at risk, and many of them do the right thing and are ambassadors to our town. I fully understand the defunding proposition, but I would not support it. What I would support is funding more police reform. So I'm a groups dynamics guy, and coming up with new frameworks for how to manage the interface between communities and the force that we use to make sure that people are safe and sound and fairly treated. And I think there's a huge amount of opportunity there. I don't think we've figured anywhere close to that. There's a lot of work to be done. I don't mean to make light of it. You know, I think defunding the police is a good bumper sticker, and I get it. But I'd rather look at the glass half full, and maybe that's my privilege, and I can't apologize for that because I'm saying it. But I will say that I commit 100% to reform so that our police officers are respectful and engaged and represent and look like the communities they serve. We have there are certainly big issues there, but I wouldn't, with a broad brush, call for defunding. I just can't support that.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much. To everyone on this call, I really appreciate you joining us. This has been one of the largest groups we've had for one of these candidate conversations, which I think speaks to Chris and the community that he has, and the support that he has. So Chris, we have your back. We appreciate everything that you do. And thank you for being here.
Thank you for all taking the time. It gives me energy, you guys. You know, I'll be walking around a little bit off the floor.
Excellent. Well, good. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you all for joining us. Check out our website with more information. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to Chris or I. Our information is on the website, GallatinDemocrats.com. And thank you all. This has been phenomenal, and have a wonderful rest of your evening, and go Gallatin, Blue Wave.
Let's go get them. Get out the vote.
Yes, let's do
3
this.
weeks of hard work. That's it, you guys, and we'll do it.
Yep. All right.
See ya.